unfortunately not anymore able, at least until the year end, to serve any snacks at Zapado. We have to serve the drinks. That has got to do with some complaints that happened here in the room. We're looking for an alternative. We're looking to solve the situation, but thank you for your understanding. I just thought it would be good to bring this up. Then we have exciting things happening in October. Next week we have the Salon RH here in Geneva. And I think to all of you, we've sent an invitation to all the members who would like to volunteer and take a couple of hours and represent the ICF at the stand. That would be great. We still have some open slots available for those of you who have not yet decided and would love and step forward to come. Please come and talk to me after the session. We also have some free tickets for those of you who would like to go to the Salon RH. Actually, so if anybody would like to go next week, it's Wednesday and Thursday, please come and talk to her. I have another request to mention. Many people have complained about our website. And after a long, long wait, great news is upon us. Mid-October, we will change the website. And Beatrice has promised me that there will be an email to all of you explaining how it works and what is to be expected. And I think one of the key improvements is that all of you, as members, can now add and upload a video of yourself to introduce you as a coach, which is a new function that we didn't have previously. So that's, it's obviously a much more sophisticated, more technically advanced website, hopefully easier to navigate, as I know people had some issues finding stuff. A long list of things that I wanted to cover, so apologies for now. I would like to give the word to two people. Jana, real quick, to talk about an opportunity in Germany in October as well, and then Philippine to talk real quick about our AGM, which is upon us in November. And then I will take over again to introduce you. Jana,
thank you, Sky. Good evening, everybody. We've been to Malmö last 3 days, and there, as we were quite a large group of people representing Switzerland, we had the chance to meet one person of ICF Germany, and they proposed us to join. They're organizing a big event of ICF Germany, to one big event of HR professional in Köln, and this is called the Zukunft Personal. And there they will have a stand, and what they would like to have is they would like to offer pro bono hours to HR professional. And this person, Bernard Zimmermann, asked us if someone in our group in Switzerland, and our chapter members in different areas in Switzerland, will be willing to offer 1 or 2 or 3 hours, as you wish, of pro bono hours. This is they would like to have as a request PCC's and MCC's level in order really to promote the professional coaching such quite a high level, and to really offer the opportunity to HR professionals to really have a real experience of what's coaching through the RCF organization. So if you are interested to offer even 1 hour, it could be in any languages, so French, Italian, Swiss, German. They're quite looking also for Swiss, German pro bono hours, because they would like to have quite a large panel of languages, or other languages you speak and coach with. So if you're interested, I have here some information I will send you by email, but I have a couple of papers and just a little form. This exhibition will be on the 14th to the 16th of October, and as they would like to present quite a book with coaches and a little bio, they would like to have your information. I think it's beginning of October, it should be around the 5th of October. So please join me after the conference, and I will give you all the information. Thank you.
Thank you.
AGM, which for the ICF, which will be this year on Friday, November 14. So if you can make a note in your diary, it will be a wonderful day. Natalie has put some work on it. Create your perfect day. I think we called it that. We will have an advertisement in HR today about it. Create your perfect day, because it will be held in the Paul Klee Zentrum in Bern, which is one of the most beautiful architectural buildings in Switzerland, I think. Renzo Piano United, whatever. It is a beautiful building, so it is in Bern. It is just 10 minutes by bus from the central station, but it's a direct bus. You can visit on the cost of ICF the museum, so we invite you to do that between 10 and 12, whatever time you like. From 12 to 1, there is a lunch which is offered to you. It is prepared by a Michelin-starred restaurant. I realize this has nothing to do with coaching, and we're just trying to bribe you.
It works.
It will be a wonderful lunch. I ordered shrimps and God knows what. Then we will have a little brief meeting between 1 and 3, and we have a little different format this year. The elections will be held partly online. So we're very, very busy preparing videos so that you can do the voting process these days online. So all candidates are just preparing that. Then there will be a workshop from 3 to 5 by the wonderful Mr. Christopher Samsa. And I have to say that, neuroscience is a topic in coaching which often comes by. And also having just been to the Mano conference, I was really enthused about the topic because there is these days so much evidence for the work we do that it is really, really helpful to come and listen to some of these people who can really phrase that well. So that when you're with clients who, as we heard in the conference, are a little bit linear and rational thinking and don't get why they have to close their eyes, why that helps, what it does to your brain, and that sort of stuff. So Christopher will be addressing that, which will be from 3 to 5, and then you're free to go. I will let you go.
So could you say a little bit more about the videos and the annual general meeting? That wasn't perfectly clear.
The election used to be done on paper.
Yeah.
So we would send you a ballot form and all kinds of letters with all candidates stuff. We won't be sending that to you anymore. We will be sending you an email inviting you to go to the website and see videos from all the candidates, and then you can vote online. And if you forget to do that and still come to Bern and want to vote, of course we will have some papers. But most of it, we invite you to really take a little bit of time and click on the candidates, because we had a ratio of 50% of people voting, so that would be really great if we can have that. And this is our first action, second action of the survey we held earlier this year. So this was a lot of people requesting this, so that's what we did. Yes, thank you. Yes, they appreciate that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, November 14.
Friday. Block the Friday. So, and now really without no further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker of tonight, Janine Everson. I think you're breaking a record tonight. I've asked Françoise because I don't really have the history, but it seems like this is a speaker from the furthest away location that we've ever had in this chapter. Janine is coming from Cape Town. I don't think she's coming just to see us. She's obviously providing a couple of things, which I'm sure you want to talk about as well. She is a representative of the Center for Coaching, and she's going to talk to us tonight about what's the difference between horizontal versus vertical development, what that actually means, I guess, is also one of the things you're going to share with us, and how integral coaching goes beyond goal setting. So I'm very excited just to hand it over to you, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
So first of all, welcome. I know we rearrange all the chairs, so some people are still wrestling with the chair situation. If there's anyone yet who needs space, please make space for them. But it's really wonderful to be here. For those of you who are wondering what on earth somebody from Cape Town is doing here, I've had a few of those questions. The Centre for Coaching was born in 2002, out of the vision of my fellow director, Craig, who went to study coaching in the USA in the year 2000, or thereabouts, at an organization called New Ventures West, which is one of the oldest coaching schools in the USA. They've been going nearly 30 years now, which is something of a record in that part of the world. And he experienced coaching and he said, this has to come to Africa. Because in those days, nobody even had heard the word coaching. I don't know what it's like in Europe, but certainly in South Africa, no one had heard of the word coaching. So I, at that stage, was a lecturer at the business schools, teaching company analysis and strategic marketing and all sorts of other topics. And he arrived and he said he wants to open this center. And everyone said, no, you're crazy. But eventually he got agreement, and I said, well, I'm very interested in this. And there's a story behind that too. So what I'd like to do is use this opportunity to work with you in the theme of narrative. Because integral coaching uses the concept of narrative in a very particular and powerful way that links into the way we work with human beings, whether it's on a vertical or horizontal level. And I'm going to explain what that word is. So tonight's going to be a story night, storytelling night. And in fact, I'm going to be breaking at least twice so that you can start to work on your own narratives and your own stories as well, see how it feels when you apply it to yourself. So the first story I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for is to say, who do I see? When I sit here, when I stand here, I see a group of people who are so committed to what it is they do that they actually take time out. They're coming, they're exploring, they're continuously learning, growing and developing and challenging themselves for growth. And I don't know if you know, but that's not a common thing, actually. There are many people who are so happy to just keep doing what they've always been doing. It's a really special and precious thing. And I love doing talks like these because it's with people who are here because you really want to be here. I hope. Okay, I'm being dry today. Anyway, why am I here really? Why am I really here? And I guess that's part of my narrative and my story. Because I started off, I grew up in South Africa, had a very privileged background with education, and started my working career, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get to the top. And I set my sights. I said, I'm going to be a director. And I worked really hard, and I became a director. After 10 years in the corporate world, there I was, sitting there, working my butt off, basically, and I became this director, and I looked around, and I said, so where is the satisfaction? I always thought, I'll feel better once I reach my goal. And I got there, and I looked around, and I still felt empty inside. And coincidentally then I looked around and I said, well, I need to change my life. I really do. And I decided I'll look to the world of academics where my father was an academic. I said, okay, I'll become an academic. I've done my MBAs or my studies. I'll join the business school and I'll change what I do and who I am from being this hard-driven businesswoman into a lecturer. I'll become a lecturer. And so off I went and I started lecturing. And the funny thing though is this, that many of us want to make a change in our lives. We do, we really do. But somehow doing it is not as easy as planning to do it and wanting to do it. Something happens between I want to do this and can I actually make it happen? Does it still make me happy? But I was very fortunate. I bumped into Craig and he said, well, he wants to open a center for coaching. He'd be prepared to provide me with coaching for 6 months so that I can experience it. And in those 6 months, I learned more about myself than in my entire life before that. All the studies I've done, all the degrees, all the courses, all the everything you can name it, all the achievements, I learned more in those 6 months than anything before. And I said, if this is what coaching is, I want to bring it to Africa as well. together, we did all the university things, and we opened the center as the first one in South Africa, I think in Africa actually. And we've taken it from there. So what am I here? I'm here because I've experienced what coaching can do for me, but I've seen that what integral coaching in particular seems to offer, no matter where I go in the world, and I take this work to places from Australia, Papua New Guinea, Kazakhstan, Middle East, the deepest, the Congo, Uganda, Kenya, West Africa. I've worked, as well as, of course, in Europe, but all over the most strange places. The Ukraine, I was there the other day. Wherever I go, this way of coaching seems to connect with the human beings in such a way that people are able to step into change and to personal growth in ways that really help them. And for me, that's the definition of success. If the person's suffering is reduced, then that makes all this worthwhile. I could spend, and I do, I can spend days talking about the roots of this style of coaching, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take a moment just to say that this philosophy and this work is standing on the shoulders of giants. There are 5 main streams in integral coaching, which is around philosophy, cognitive and biological sciences, spirituality, psychology, and narrative. And I did a whole literature analysis of just the beginnings of the school and the kinds of references that fill these are ones I'm very happy to discuss with anybody who has particular interests in that offline. But suffice it to say that this work, all the way from from the ancient histories of Socrates and Christianity, Buddhism, and the deeper philosophies, all the way through to the latest biological sciences, the neuroscience that's coming out, is something that we work with and we're very aware of. Working with narrative, though, is relatively new. We started working with narrative in about 2004, and noticing, oh no, I lied, it was more about 2008. We brought narrative into our coaching, and the shift was quite remarkable. The concept of vertical versus horizontal is actually new language that has been birthed actually in the field of leadership development. In fact, there's a movement called conscious capitalism. I don't know if people have read quite a few articles around vertical and horizontal leadership, which has recently come out. This is something we've been doing for a while. So, what are we in the middle of? I guess that this is part of the human condition. What we talk about is saying we are born into this world, many people say whole, and then as we grow, even before the first 2 years of life, we have had to leave behind parts of ourselves. And I'm sure many of you have studied this. That quest to find those missing parts of ourselves is something that intrigues all of us. And those missing parts of ourselves, or the part of us that's left behind, is what most of us look at as the personality. Now, our personality is needed and necessary for us to go out and succeed in the world. It is. But part of the challenge is that at a certain stage we go, but hang on, I'm missing something. It's that empty feeling. Some people have that, but other people come to us for coaching, not because they're missing something, but because they're stuck. And they keep getting stuck. They're living in a cycle. And I'm going to share 3 cases with you tonight, where people that I've personally coached who have been stuck in this cycle, but they're the sort of cycles we all recognize, either being stuck in ourselves or we know people who are stuck in them. They're quite common of the modern world. Martin Heidegger, who's one of the key philosophers we work with, he talks about how we're thrown into life. And we are very much thrown into the world and have to make do with the parents, the families, the environments, the contexts, the organizations we land up living in. That helps to mold us as well. So it's not just ourselves and our personalities, it's where we've been. How do we bring that into our field of awareness? How do we work with that as coaches as well? You can't just coach a person in isolation. We have to bear in mind the life they're in as well. So this is part of the human condition, and it's part of what we really, really want to work with. By the way, I don't know how other speakers do it, because this, to be honest, is my first ICF presentation, and the other I did the ICF, so I don't know your culture here, but certainly back home, if people have something to ask or say, they just, blurt and interrupt. I don't know if that's done with that. You're welcome to do that if you like. So, what I wanted to explain to you is, before we can look at vertical versus horizontal, we also have to look at the role of narrative. And I'll tell you a story about this first coachee I worked with, who's a very senior executive, actually at the moment working in Kazakhstan, but British born. And he has a head office in the UK, and he's there. And for years, he's been struggling, we were struggling with the fact that he needed to be, the 360s would all say to him, you need to be tougher, you need to be more assertive, you need to be stronger, you need to be more clear, you need to drive your team harder, you need better results, and do more with less. And he worked really hard. This guy was working himself to a standstill. But his coaching topic to me was, okay, how do I deal with the fact that every time, particularly when I have to go in front of authority figures, like my bosses in the head office, or when I do presentations to people who I feel are evaluating me, whenever I'm there, I collapse. I become, incoherent. I can't remember what I'm supposed to say. And then he'd make inappropriate jokes, and he'd be very self-deprecating, as the British can do, and very dry sense of humor. It was very funny, but he didn't make a good impression. And this was a massive glass ceiling for him. But more importantly, the levels of anxiety he was living with, it was just unbelievable. He hardly slept, ever. He was always so anxious that he was going to disappoint people, or they would disapprove of him, or he would let them down. He said, "No, I made a mistake again. I'm not good enough. I can't do this." Absolute, really anxiety. So I said to him, but explain to me, when in your life, that feeling of kind of being not good enough or being too anxious, when else has this happened to you? Because sometimes we can't see our own narratives. And he said, well, actually, I felt like that practically my whole school life. I was always kind of not quite, he was below average, he tried really hard, but his brothers were the heroes, and he was just, he said he never felt like he made it at school, he never felt comfortable. And in fact, that's exactly how he feels now, particularly in the first windows. He's always worried he's not good enough. And he said, actually, that's how he feels. There's a picture he found. And when you explore someone's narrative, I said, so imagine if you were living from that place. These are the 3 questions we ask when we're exploring a narrative. And the first question is, if I was, so let's explore and see if that's the narrative that you're living with. If I am living in the world as an insecure boy, then who am I in the world? Who am I? And he said, well, I'm somebody who's never quite there. I'm somebody who never quite knows enough. I'm always trying to catch up with the bigger boys. I'm somebody who is working so hard, but I never seem to get the grades. I never quite make it. And I'm somebody who's anxious, nervous. And he was recalling his whole school life, which doesn't always happen in narrative, by the way. But he happened to access that. Because he says, it's exactly how I feel, particularly when I go to head office. The next question you need to ask when you're exploring narrative is, So if I'm living in the world as an insecure boy, who are others? How do I relate to others from that place? And he said, well, actually, others are people who are judging me. They're evaluating me. They're often going to bully me too. Others are the people who know more. He was always convinced everybody else knew more at school than he did. They're older, they're bigger, they're smarter, they know. They can see that I don't really know enough. He says, and they always find me wanting. Imagine living in a world like that. And then the third question is, if that is the case and if that's who others are, what am I to do? How am I going to show up? How am I going to use the world around me? And you're going to, and he said, but then it makes perfect sense. I'm going to do things to try and allay my anxiety. So he would try and sleep by, he would try and cope with his anxiety by numbing himself. He would never, when he told me this, I was like, he would lie in bed and he'd have to have an audio book in his head to try and go to sleep with. If he was watching TV, he would be simultaneously writing something and trying to read a book and have a conversation. He never did just one thing at a time. And of course, he also had some other habits involving, enjoying partying and drinking and keeping very, very busy. But his busyness, he couldn't sit still for 1 split second. And he did so much all the time. That was when he wasn't at work. How he was to do at work is that he was always over-preparing, but in an anxious way, so missing the big picture. He was so worried about getting things wrong, all he did was talk about what he never got right, what the team got wrong. He never talked about their successes. And he didn't see it himself even. He was just stressed and waiting to be found out. So he was living in a world where he was about to be caught out. And by the way, I did a 360 on him, and his 360 was one of the most overwhelmingly positive ones I've ever done. I interviewed all the people around him, his bosses, and we love this guy. He's so honest, he's so loyal, he's so sincere. He always tells you exactly what's going on. He gets things done. He never lets us down. He's such a nice person. We adore him. He's like one of the nice people. We don't even know how he's made it this far because he's such a nice guy. And he had like the most astoundingly positive feedback that almost I've ever heard. But when I told it to him, he was just bowled over. He couldn't actually believe it. So he was living in a world of enormous defense. So that, I don't know if that gives you a feeling for a narrative, if you're living from that place.
I'm not sure I got the third question. Is it what was I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing as a kid in the initial situation, or what should I do? What am I doing?
What do I do? So
What do I do now?
Yes. What kind of actions and behaviors and how do I use the world around me?
Yeah.
I use it to keep me busy and to try and, so it's now. All of these questions are how it's showing up now.
Yeah.
It's a good question. So that's an example of one narrative. Another example, and I'll tell the story a little more like I've got 3. I'm going to keep us 3 case studies going. So another one is a Russian executive I'm coaching at the moment who's living in Belarus, which is not an easy place, and the Ukraine is working in. And he came to me, and he's got this strong Russian accent. He says, Ajani, he says, I swim every morning, even if it's -10. He says, us Russians, we don't need to wear swimming costumes. He said, I just get in the water and go. And that's his attitude. Enormous man. Very fierce, very determined. And he said, I have to succeed. If I don't succeed, I will be out. That's everything. I live and die by my success. And he says, I never fail. I succeed, I fight, and I make it. And all his language was around war, fighting. He fought for his results. He fought to make things right. He was like the lone warrior, and that was his mission in life. And this has served him very well. Highly successful executive. Said one day he phoned me and said, Janine, we have a problem. Okay. And this narrative, who am I and who are others, if I'm a Russian Cossack fighting, well, who am I? I am a fighter, I'm a warrior. I'm in the world to win. And if I don't win, well then I must have lost. You know? So I'm always driving forward and I'm looking for that goal. Who are others? Others are there to either support me or get in my way. If they're getting in my way, you know, I'm going to cut them down. And if they're supporting me, well, they can support from the back. But it's a very utilitarian view of people. And it's very black and white. You know, they're either supporters or they're not. Like in war, you've got to be clear who's doing what. And what am I to do? Well, the way he ran his organization was very much command control. We're in this fight together. We're going to get those results. We're going to succeed. We're going to win. It was all about winning, losing, battles. You should have heard him, the language he would describe to me in the boardroom. Very, very militaristic. You know, we've got to arm ourselves. We've got to, you know, get our defenses ready. Let's prepare how we're going to attack this market. Everything was around using militaristic language. It's quite interesting. And initially I didn't pick up on it because his English wasn't that good. So I thought, oh, it's some sort of Russian, you know, idiomatic expressions. But it turns out it wasn't. And this narrative, by the way, our narratives are our narratives because they serve us so well that they allow us to succeed to where we get to. And we don't even particularly necessarily want to change them until we get stuck or something happens. And in his case, what happened is his success came to a sudden grinding halt. But we'll get to that part of the story. But his old narrative was a very successful solo warrior.
So at the moment by asking the question, you just get to know the time, their situation, and bring their own awareness, right?
Yes. So the first step is to sit with the coachee. And in fact, I'm going to ask you to pair up just now and just to play with it a little bit. It's obviously there's a huge depth that goes into it, but to play with it and start to see, can you start to see your pattern? It's a pattern. Because here's the thing, if you, it's like a doctor that says, you go to a doctor, you say, oh, I've got a sore elbow, right? And he says, oh, let me just treat this elbow. Anyone who's done sports science nowadays knows people are a little more advanced now. But in the old days, my mum was a physio. She would get these people where the doctors would inject the elbow and just look at. Meanwhile, the injury is caused by something in the neck or the spine or something. But they keep getting this cortisone and all this treatment for the elbow because that's the problem. What narrative forces us almost to do is to look at the whole person in the context of their lives. And that's one of the big philosophies that we subscribe to, is that yes, we can coach a little symptom. We can coach someone who has got, maybe is someone whose team isn't very happy. So you can imagine his team wasn't necessarily that happy. Right? Or someone who has, in the first case, who's not assertive enough. That might be a presenting issue. But if all you do is you just look at that, then you're a little bit just focusing on the elbow.
But I mean, if you tell someone, tell me about your patterns, then they get very brainy and analytical and will serve you the typical story. How do you invite them to go into the storytelling? So that we switch brain side.
It's such a beautiful question. And that's, we have a series of processes that are behind that we use, but the primary one is what we call a conversation for relationship. And we actually would spend at least a whole session, a whole coaching session, an hour to an hour and a half, and the beginning of every other session thereafter, inviting people to tell their story. want to look at their relationship to their symptom, which is usually the presenting issue. One of the key things we want to look at is not only how they think about it, okay, but we inquire specifically into how they're feeling, and also their physiological, somatic, or biological responses. So how their body is responding to it. For example, the guy who would be the insecure boy, he would literally he wouldn't be able to speak. He would tremble and have a physiological, somatic response to actually having to address or having to address. Or he'd get sick. Every time he went to London, he'd get sick. And then he had to fight through flu and colds and everything. What's that about? But we explore not only we have various streams of we explore relationships, emotion, their relationship to spirituality, to family. You can actually invite people to explore, to share their life in quite a comprehensive way if you have a structure like that. So that conversation for relationship is absolutely critical. And it's way more than just tell me about your problem. Tell me a little bit about your background. Yeah, what's happened? We go there. The third story I want to talk to you about is a lady who works in Cape Town, who's a doctor specialist. She's the head of department of one of our giant teaching hospitals, which we have in South Africa. And she runs the oncology unit, which is a massive cancer unit. And in South Africa, we have very poor health facilities, very grossly underfunded. They work in the most shocking conditions. And her challenge was she was promoted to head of department after being a successful surgeon. How does she run it? And she was coming to me saying, I've worked so hard. I've been told I've got to get better results. I need to process more patients through. I need to fill the beds more efficiently. The staff need to work better. I'm trying so hard. I'm trying to drive. I'm trying to do more with less. There's no budget. There's no funding. There's nothing. I'm just so frustrated. Everyone's demoralized. Everyone's angry. Everyone's upset because we can't. The patients are dying. We haven't got enough care. We haven't got enough funds. And I don't know what to do. Everyone is just beside themselves. And she described herself as somebody I love systems and processes, a very pragmatic lady, and it's like I'm a mechanic and I've got this car, but I just can't get it to run smoothly because then people are off, people are fighting, people are angry, and the staff don't arrive for work, and then the patients are lying there. They don't go away when the staff, and it's not like a piece of paper you can put aside, so I'll do them a day later. Then the people left behind get resentful. So she's so frustrated. So she was looking at her department very much like a mechanical system. She wanted to fix it. And so she was there seeing others, okay, I need these people here, I need to deploy them there, and just trying to move people around all the time. Couldn't understand why the people were not responding, were getting more and more dysfunctional. So her idea of what to do is to just keep moving parts, just keep trying to fix the system, just try and get those gears working, and just move people around all the time, try and get better efficiencies. So that is how she arrived. So those are 3 stories to start with. What I'd like to invite you to do is to say, to just turn to somebody next to you. It might be easier to do this with someone you do not know, because when you know the person well, we get lost in what we think that we know the character is. And I'm going to give you just 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes, and you could do both of you or just one of you. But the question might be is, if you take a scenario, let's take yourself in the workplace, or yourself as a coach, or yourself in your whole life, if you can. And just say to yourself, right, let me just broadly, so if I were to say, and this isn't me now, but if I was to say, well, let's say I'm a mother of 2 children, I have a full-time job, I play the violin, I love running, I'm on the PTA committee, I have parents who need to see me 2 times a week, and I want to do everything to the very highest standard. If that's the narrative I'm living in, okay? If I was listening to someone describing that sort of thing, I might say, oh gosh, that sounds a lot like Superwoman, You sound like someone who wants to do everything perfectly, no matter what. So what image comes to you? So it's, the invitation is, because the secret of a narrative is not so much what people share with you, but if you find the image or we call it a distinction, if you find a distinction that holds that, then you don't need all the details of the story. You're actually, Superwoman, you're right. Superwoman does this, okay, and they fill in the blanks, it feels right. So that's the invitation, is just spend, and I know it's a ridiculously short space of time, just play with it. See if you get a feeling of offering someone an image or a distinction like a warrior or a Superman or something like that. And they'll tell you immediately, it sits here. Yeah, that feels right. Or no, that doesn't work. No, I feel more like Florence Nightingale, for instance. Does that make sense? Question?
I was just thinking about the question that was asked earlier in terms of the what am I to do?
Yes.
It sounded the way you replied, how I understood it was more about what am I doing rather than what am I to do.
Yes.
So what's the,
What
from
am I
a language
now?
point of view, it sounds very action-oriented. So who am I, who are the others, now what am I going to do? And that's not really what you're saying. So can you please just clarify also why, what's behind using that language, what am I to do?
Yes. It actually comes from it's good you picked that up. It comes from a philosophical root, and it's a philosophical question. How am I to be in the world? How am I going to use the world around me? How am I going to get things done? What are the sort of things I need to do? It comes from a different philosophical stream. So grammatically, it's not quite right in this. So that's
like
what's.
I'm the insecure boy, the others are bullies, and so I need to hope, prepare, I need to defend myself, etc.
Yes.
Is that what?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Yes. So it's general. Yes. I'm not sure what phrase would. But does that make sense? It's yes.
So how do I cope?
How do I cope?
Is that
Yes.
the process he's in?
That's a lovely, yeah, how do I cope? How do I use the world around me? So this is grounded in another model that comes from our philosophy. We say I, what's going on in I in my domain, what's going on in we, the relational domain, and what's going on in the it, the domain of systems, procedures, work, the world around me. And so this is saying, how do I use the world around me? How do I get things done? How do I cope? I love that. How do I cope?
Is that as a defined living
Yes.
as this?
Yes, yes. Because without realizing it, that's what makes things possible. That's where we gravitate to. Yeah, because I'm going to behave. I'm going to use the world in that way. Yes, I'm going to cope like a warrior. If I'm living in the world as a warrior. Yes.
I'm a French speaker, so I'm kind of trying to interpret also the language. And so what am I to do also almost feels like, what am I driven to do?
Beautiful.
So
I like
as,
it.
more as compared to how do I cope,
Yes.
which may actually give a sense of agency.
Right.
What am I driven to do? I'm kind of, or have no agency, I'm a victim of my narrative.
Lovely. Yes, yes. I'm driven without even thinking about it. I just automatically move into the world in that way. I'm just automatically going to roll up my sleeves, in her case, the doctor, and try and fix the system in a mechanistic way. I'm a mechanic. I'm just going to move this part there and change that part. Beautiful. What am I driven to do? Thank you. Okay. Right, so clear up. We've got 15 minutes.